Claudia Stellner. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Could you start with an introduction of who you are and what you're interested in, please?
All right, so yeah, I'm a 14-year-old writer and creator, we could say. I've been building my audience in Twitter for the past 2 years, also writing a newsletter. I kind of ditched that path because I'm not interested in like building my business or audience on Twitter anymore. But I have some cool projects coming up right now related to writing and creation, and yeah, I'm just figuring out just an ambitious young person, we shall say, and just yeah, trying to uh find my life's work and just do the best I can in this space.
Yeah, that's a great intro. I always find it interesting when I find other quite young people in. I mean, I just turned 18, so I guess I'm not that young anymore. But I got into this when I was quite a bit younger. But how did you kind of get into this kind of field of like money, Twitter, and business at like 14?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that question. It's been I don't know, I feel like ever since I was a child, I just had this obsession with being the best at whatever I could do. So whether that was just learning something in school, like for example, when I was younger, I was obsessed with like science and physics and stuff like that. I could just like I would just spend hours learning about that, just like to be one of the most knowledgeable people about a subject, we could say, or even like with sports. Like I do martial arts, I do Taekwondo. I would spend hours training every single day just to be one of the top people in the country. And I guess that somehow when you have this obsession of getting better at whatever you put your hands on, you just get to the meta of it, which is obviously self-improvement, entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And I kind of got into this online space through watching videos from people like Ali Abdel or Thomas Frank because they're talking about self-improvement and productivity a lot. And I know that Ali Abdel in almost every single video was talking about how starting a blog or starting a website, just basically putting himself out there and creating something for people online was one of the best decisions he ever made. So I was just like, oh yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna create a website. I was super like afraid that someone would find it and I would just always cringe whenever I would read my own posts. But I just did it. I started with like creating my blog, my personal blog in my mother tongue, which is Czech. And then I realized that there's no way I could get any like decent amount of traction by writing in this language because our country is like 10 million people. So not really a huge chance of reaching huge amounts of people. So I decided to start a newsletter in English. And I kind of did like the opposite path because a lot of people started social media first and then start newsletters and long form stuff. I did the opposite way. And I kind of started Twitter because I wanted to promote that newsletter, but I just over time got into this wheel of, trying to grow, trying to write content that grabs people's attention, connecting with cool people. And it just got me into this whole entrepreneurship space, online entrepreneurship space. And that's how I ended up here.
Yeah, that's interesting. You said you had that drive from like a young age. Do you think like maybe your parents influenced that, or do you think it's something you're kind of like born with?
I feel like it was just in me. Like I know that there are a lot of parents who just always kind of force their kids to like do good at school, like you're gonna be this and this. But my parents, I feel like it's maybe because my parents always gave me the freedom to just like do whatever I want, whatever interests me, and they've always been a massive support in whatever I wanted to do. So I guess that's where it comes from the freedom they gave me, and it's just I guess it's just also an intrinsic drive I was born with. Not sure how that works, but yeah, I don't feel like it's that someone forced me to do that. It just yeah, it comes from the inside.
Mm. Yeah, that kind of freedom to do things, I think, kind of like makes you actually love learning. Whereas I think I'd be interested to hear your perspectives on this, but I know a lot of people think that kind of the current school system is kind of doesn't really allow for creativity, and then a lot of people get this idea that like, oh, anytime I'm learning it's like boring and I don't want to do it. So people a lot of people, unfortunately, they come out of school and then they don't learn anything like after that, really. So yeah, what do you think of like the current school system?
I feel like school isn't bad. Like as a lot of people try to shit on school, but I feel like school is good unless you do not completely outsource your education and your learning to the school system because obviously it's not ideal, but it's still useful because because like nothing like more than like nothing else than school gives you a broader overview of like how the world works, the stuff that's out there, just like the general base of knowledge that's always good to have. And based on that like knowledge base, you can explore tons of things. And I feel like just being generally smart and just like knowing a lot of things is always an advantage. And only a few only a few things can give you that accountability to try to educate yourself in all these different subjects and spaces. And also one thing I believe school is absolutely like exceptional at is like probably the only kind of place where you can learn that skill is just leveraging and not leveraging, but like creating curiosity in yourself. Because what I believe is that curiosity, like a lot of people tell you, just like you have to be curious and have to ask a lot of questions. But I feel like curiosity isn't always something you're born with, but it's something you need to cultivate. And I feel like the best way to cultivate curiosity is to try to get yourself interested in subjects that you might not like or might not be as close to you. So, and in school, you get to learn a lot of stuff like that. And obviously, over time, you find out that learning stuff when it's fun, when you're interested in that, is easier. But if teacher doesn't do the job of getting you interested in that subject, it's like it's something you have to do yourself. And when you just build this habit of getting yourself kind of into things you do not like as much at first, it just helps you massively with a lot of things, with learning other skills you're going to actually enjoy with entrepreneurship, because like basically all success in life comes from learning and from curiosity. So yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it kind of develops that discipline that you kind of have to. Sometimes it's going to be hard, and you are going to have to work at it. You might not get it straight away. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you're still in school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, you're not thinking of like dropping out or anything, because I know some people do in this space. They're like, "Oh, I'm going to drop out and do business full time."
No, I do not. The only thing I just want to do is to do as well as I can until I finish high school, so then I can leave the country and go to school to another country, because I feel like in turn like success really depends on the environment you're in. And I feel like the place where I'm at right now is quite bad for opportunities and making connections with people. So I'd like to move somewhere, where like to like an environment that's more conducive to my growth, both as a person, as an entrepreneur, whatever. So I'd love to move in America. Like that's an absolute dream, like USA. But just any bigger country, even in Europe, even like UK, will be fine. So these are my aspirations. Yeah, but not planning to drop out at all.
Mm, okay, yeah. A lot of people do like America, and for good reason. So you mentioned that like you're not as kind of passionate about Twitter, or maybe not. Maybe that's passionate's the wrong word. You're not as focused on it, and you've got some other
Yeah,
projects coming up. So can you talk a bit about like, I guess why you're deciding to pivot to these different things and what those different things are?
sure. So one kind of thing that I've been noticing for the past about money Twitter, as we call it, that quite annoyed me, and a lot of other people start noticing that too, is that basically like it used to be a super useful place to share ideas and just bounce your thoughts with other people and meet cool people. And I believe that like there's still tons of accounts and like communities where you can do that. But what money Twitter became is essentially creators building a business based on teaching other creators how to build a business, so they can build a business based on teaching other people how to build a business. So it's this kind of like never ending downward spiral. And it's just there are so many people who know literally nothing about a subject, nothing about writing, copywriting, or whatever they talk about, that it's really hard to distinguish who can you actually trust. And like it's just full of it's now like full of just kids, as we talk about, just dropping out of college, shitting on 9 to 5 jobs and shitting on school and stuff like that, just like thinking they're cool, for dropping out at 16 and I don't know, building their businesses. Like obviously like whatever, like anyone can do what they want, but I don't know, I just not do not really vibe with it anymore, with what it became. And I don't know, I feel like it's all just one huge pursuit of engagement and of like external validation. And I right now I'm trying to use Twitter the way most successful people use it, which is A, for sharing useful ideas, so as they call it, public journal, and B, for leverage it for those connections. Because I do believe that over the past 2 years, I've been building the 30K audience I have. Just like the biggest benefit I have, it's not the followers, it's not all the likes, it's just the connections I've built. The support from people, but also like the valuable connections of some smart people with some big names. So, yeah, not sure if I answered your question. So yeah, that's why I
Yeah,
pivoted
yeah,
it further
no,
back.
that's good. And then I guess kind of like what is next for you, do you think? I know you mentioned that you will want to do like copywriting services maybe. Is that still the
Yeah,
case?
that was the first plan I wanted to do after I like announced that I want to move away from Twitter. But since I've been trying to get into that a little bit, but I've been actually like over the past few weeks, I've been really thinking about what I actually want to do with my time, what really energizes me the most. And it made me think that I guess that whatever whatever path I'm going to choose in the future is probably going to be based on writing and sharing ideas with other people, not just in the, way I did it on Twitter. And one of the big things I'm planning to do or aspiring to do right now is that you might have seen this, but sometime last week, Ali Abdel announced he's looking to add a newsletter writer to his team, and I did a little kind of campaign, we shall say. So I wrote 3 sample newsletters for him, and then I created a thread where it's kind of like a cheeky thread, but I talk about like 5 reasons he and his team should hire me. And that thread was, yeah, it was pretty massive. It got tons of support. I was completely blown away. And yeah, so that's what I'm aspiring to do right now. So if I want to land a job at Ali, which I don't really expect to happen because I also have like tons of backup plans if this doesn't work out, then my number one priority right now is to, no matter what, just get to work with someone I truly admire, because I believe like I'm not the type of person that would have like a crystal clear vision of what I want my life to look like in 10 or 20 years. And I do believe that the best way to figure this out is to get super close to people that, like whose with whose how do I say it? With like yeah, with whose careers and like their lifestyles you vibe with the most. And I'm trying to just like build those connections, try to get as close to these people as possible. And I guess that's the most that's like my priority right now.
Yeah, is that like submission thing still open for Ali Abdal, do you know?
No, I feel like the deadline. Yeah, I think the deadline was on Monday. Yeah, 16th of October.
Okay, because
So, and I should get the results anytime soon. So, I'm awaiting some response.
okay, okay, because I do know, well, I kind of know Tommy Mallon, so I could ask him, but it might be too late. Who was, I think he did the main copywriting for his
I don't
part-time
tell me.
YouTuber, yeah, academy. Okay, so that getting close to people who you said you kind of vibe with how they live their life, is that right? Or
Yeah, it's like with their careers, with the way they build their business. So like,
and what does that kind of person look like? Like, what, I know you said you're not like completely dialed in on what you want your life to look like, but like, what are the kind of, I guess, similarities or like values you see between these people who you're interested in working with?
yeah. So it's number one. There are people who are yeah. So similar to what I like to do right now, these should be people that are clear fingers and like to share their ideas with the world and are kind of like known based on that. So people like James Clear or Ali Abdel, or who else can I think of? Ryan Holiday, for example. So writers, we could say, or just creators in general, but not, the type of creators you see on Twitter, but really those like who are like on the another level, like those who have been creating like even before money Twitter existed. And then generally people who it's really tough to like put into words, but I just have like a broad idea of like what does their career and lifestyle look like. But these are like generally these are also people who are not like famous or anything. They just like, how do I put this?
The niche fame.
We just, yeah, that's what, yeah.
So they're like famous in their area, but like not outside of that.
Yeah, exactly. And also just people who are like connected with other people, because I'm a huge fan of just like, connecting with people and like networking in general. So just not someone who like, likes to work lonely in like a cabin in the woods, but someone who is connected to the world and likes to work with other people too. So these are probably two main like characteristics, you should say.
Yeah. So I know you know Valeria and Suleiman. How did you kind of, I guess, first meet those guys?
How did I first meet them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I've known Suleiman for a bit longer. I was just starting on Twitter. I feel like I had like sub 500 followers, and I think he was like sub 1,000. And during that time, I knew very few people who were the same age as me. And I was still at that point where I was super insecure about doing this while only being, I think I was 13 at that time. So when I saw like a 16-year-old, which was probably the person who was closest to my age at that point, I was like super happy and like super impressed with what he's doing, because just when I just saw his tweets and saw his bio, looked at his tweets and saw his bio, I was like, oh yeah, this guy looks like a pro. Like he looks like he achieved something, and I still think that to the present day. I still feel like Slayman is one of the best people at what he does, especially like he's not like the other, new, like young mighty Twitter newcomers. I feel like he's very wise, and he's just a legend. Like who the fuck like works to retire their mom, Just like he's super great guy, interesting, a very interesting guy. So, and we just kind of connected somehow. I once DM'd him, he then followed me, and we just started talking. We went on a bunch of calls. Yeah, so he's a great person to talk to, and yeah, we've been talking on and off casually. So yeah, and Valeria, I feel like this is I just this is I don't really remember that story, but I know that I've like known that Valeria like is on Twitter and is growing quite fast. But I didn't really like connect with her. But we once got into the same Discord group where we started talking, and we once happened to hop on a call, and our personalities almost like matched. So we like started vibing together, and yeah, we've been talking for a long time since then. It was like since like December. So yeah, that's how those two.
Yeah, I was just interested because it's kind of you come into like these spaces and you kind of like how did I'm interested in like the stories of how everybody got here because it's quite interesting. Um, so you're kind of backing off Twitter a bit. Are you still planning on going with your newsletter? And are you still doing a blog actually as well?
Yeah, so I'm only writing my newsletter at this point. It's just I'm not planning to like I'm not trying to grow it or promote it or anything. I'm just treating this as a way to kind of consolidate and curate the best ideas I came across the week that passed, because I try to send it every single Sunday. And it's just like a reflection for me, because in each newsletter I share three things. I share one win of the week for me, three ideas from other people that I liked, and one quote. And it's just for me a way to kind of distill all the learnings from the week and just like, reflect on what I've been consuming, what I've been doing, what I've been working on. And I also feel like it's very beneficial to like something to look back when once I become successful, because it's just I feel like it's always priceless when someone just documents their journey, what they're doing, what they're consuming, and then so they can then like look back on that and just like see, okay, this is like what led me here. Okay, interesting. So I feel like, yeah, it's important to track the stuff you do like that, and I feel like newsletter is a great way to also bring others along the ride. So yeah, I'm writing that quite religiously every single week, and yeah, that's pretty much it. But right now, I'm not really expecting to start anything else since if I land a job with Ali, I guess this is probably going to be all I'm gonna have my like time for. So because I also like do sports, I have to prepare for tournaments and stuff, plus school. So there's quite a lot of to balance.
Hmm. Yeah, have you always done the newsletter like that? Like, was it always like a consolidation of your ideas, or was it like sometimes like you were a bit more like trying to get engagement and writing it in certain ways?
Yeah, so the theme of the newsletter changed so many times I can't even like count that. Like I've been basically like I've been sending this newsletter to the same email list. Or like I started a newsletter originally exactly 2 years ago. I think it was like yeah, the end of October, beginning of November. And it started off as a newsletter for students, like how to study effectively, how to manage your time, how to be productive. Then as I started getting more into on Twitter, it was more about just like general self-improvement and productivity. And then as I started getting more audience, it's turned into writing because that's where my interest shifted. Like I've been writing about writing and Twitter growth for a long time. So that's my newsletter turned into. And for a long time it was this like long form style newsletter, the deep dive style like Dank or Justin Welch do if you know these people. So just like a long tactical and practical issue on some kind of idea, whatever, just like how to like those general how to guides, like how to grow your following, stuff like that. And over time, as I pivoted my brand, I realized that I still love writing, but I don't like writing about writing. So it turned into this more like a vehicle for me to share those interesting ideas. So it definitely hasn't always been like that. I've changed it many times. I even like changed the newsletter name and everything. I just pivoted so many times in so many things. And I feel like that's okay. Like it's okay to pivot. It's not okay to quit. That's what I'd say.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. I think it's important that like you actually enjoy it. I know a lot of people say like, oh, you don't have to enjoy what you do, and you just need to like grind it out. But I think if you like really want to become really good at something, like it helps a lot if you actually like what you're doing. Uh, so what I'd be interested to hear is you might not know all the data for this, but do you think the newsletter did perform better when you were kind of more optimizing for engagement rather than just like here's my learnings? Or I think it would be interesting, did it actually grow more when you were kind of being more authentic and not trying to get the engagement as much?
I'd say the growth has been definitely bigger when I was actually trying to grow the newsletter because I was just trying to, you know, do all the do all the high level tasks that would grow the newsletter, which means like plugging the links under tweets and doing cross promotions with other people, and stuff like that.
Mm.
So the growth was definitely bigger. I was like doing giveaways to get more leads on the email list and stuff like that. And yeah, so the growth has been bigger. Right now I feel like the numbers are they're like quite fluctuating. So I get like a lot of subscribes, but then after each issue I get tons of unsubscribes, probably because I changed the theme. Or not sure. Just I it's like super normal to get tons of unsubscribes. And the number pretty much stays the same right now. So sometimes just like a huge spike of new subscribers if I post something that goes semi-viral, like the last week's Ali Abdel thread. But then it just goes down. So it's like it's not really growing right now anymore because I'm not really I'm not saying I'm not providing any value, but the value I'm providing is not intentional. So it's not like here's my advice on how to do X, but here is something cool I found, so you might like it too. And I guess unless you are not like absolutely famous in your space, this approach of just sharing ideas doesn't always get the most traction.
Mm. Okay, that is interesting to know that like the kind of hacks and stuff that people use, they do actually work. Um, to like kind of get more engagement. Interesting. Yeah, I know Tim Ferriss, I think, does something like that. 5 Bullet Friday, I think his one's
Yeah,
called.
I will Friday.
Um, but I mean, like you said, he is really quite famous, so people are probably going to listen more. Because I think that's a good point. Like, especially if like people don't know you as much, that people are going to find you more likely if you're giving something like really direct. Like they'll search up like how do I solve this problem, and then you're there to help. Whereas if you're just giving out random ideas, that it's not really like you almost don't have a niche at that point. So it's kind of just luck that random people will find you, but they might not stick around. Hmm.
Yeah. Yo, by the way, I see there's tons of sun on my face, so should I change it?
Uh,
It's quite
it's
doesn't
okay.
look good. Okay.
Um,
I can't really sit anywhere else than here, just very nice.
yeah, no, it's fine. Okay. So wait, do you think when you were saying that, I thought it was kind of interesting. Do you think you actually did at one point become one of those people who was kind of like writing about writing, and like you were learning about writing as you write, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but kind of like we are talking about how a lot of people build businesses by telling people how to build businesses. I saw a similar thing on Instagram with like theme pages. People would like teach people how to monetize theme pages by basically just making a theme page and teach other people. It's like a giant kind of pyramid
Yeah.
scheme or something. Do you
Yeah.
do you think you ever like maybe in that position where you maybe didn't have that much knowledge, but you were kind of you knew how to like present and stuff, so it kind of looks like you know what you're doing.
I feel like I was in that position the entire time because one advice that got very popular in the space, and this advice is also probably the reason why so many people who have no idea what they're talking about are talking about this stuff, is that like it's just not a bad advice, and it's just but it's like a lot of people misinterpret it, and it's just that you should not feel imposter syndrome because you can just talk to people who are a few steps behind you, and even if you feel like you do not have much knowledge, what you say might be mind blowing to them. And this is good advice, but what I feel like I feel like the real problem isn't in people like talking about something they're not totally skilled in, because like nobody's like totally like 100% skilled in a subject. But what I feel like is it's just it got too saturated that a lot of people started copying the same templates, the same bios. Like in every other bio in Mindful, you're going to see some lane transformation, like volleyball player turned writer, or like 9 to 5 turned, I don't know, like online entrepreneur. It's just so cringe. Like I can't. It's just I don't like seeing that, and it's just people kind of like people just don't try to innovate at all. They just like see that it's working for someone else and they just go down that route, and that's why Twitter has become what it became right now. So
Okay. It's interesting how it's kind of gone from like, I mean, when would you say this? Because I didn't get into money Twitter that long ago, really. So like, when do you think it kind of started to get worse? Because you said you kind of felt that you could see it get worse. Like, because when did you get in? You kind of got in that long ago, can you?
yeah, so I got on Twitter November 2021, and at that point it was still like a place where I was getting so much like high quality ideas from really good people. Like the algorithm was so good. Like almost every single tweet I read was a gem. But I feel like it all started getting worse. Sometime I guess like the era where money Twitter was the best was somewhere around summer of 2022. Like that's where still like doing that stuff of like teaching other people, like those who are a few steps behind you, was still cool. But I feel like it just started getting worse since the new year, since like 2023.
Do you
And that's where like standing out became harder, and it just got more saturated.
do you think it's possible that you kind of learned more and that it didn't actually change? It was just kind of that you changed, like, and your knowledge and beliefs and stuff. So by that, as you went through this process, by the time you were like, oh well, I've already seen all of this like so many times, it's not valuable to me anymore.
It might be that. It also might be the reason why I decided to switch to niches, but yeah, I feel like it's just a natural cycle. Like I feel like so many people who are even like killing it right now on Twitter are going to change their minds soon, because I don't feel like, writing about like, growing your account based on teaching other people how to grow, just like this scheme isn't a thing that's going to work in the long term, like because just because something works super well in the short term doesn't mean it's going to work in the long term. And I feel like Twitter is one of those things that it's like I believe that right now it's one of the fastest ways you can go from making zero money online to making like 10K dollars per month. but like, and it probably is sustainable, but maybe like mm, the passion for it isn't sustainable. And that's the main thing, that like at some point it's probably going to stop become fulfilling and you'll want something more. And that's like probably the point that I reached, that I just realized that that there is a lot more that from the business and like entrepreneurship world that I can see, and I just want to explore that and break out of the bubble.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point about like things working in the short term doesn't mean they're going to work in the long term. I mean, straight came to my mind was like bodybuilders using steroids. Like it definitely works in the short term, but in the long term it really doesn't work. Okay, you mentioned like sports tournaments earlier. Like what you still doing Taekwondo or
Yeah, yeah. Since like second, not for 7 years I've been doing it. So yeah,
wow. And it's like a striking sport, right? It's not like judo.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's quite similar to karate or to kickboxing. It's kind of like,
Mm.
yeah, like the fights are super similar to boxing. Some people say it's the same. It's not. It's slightly like lighter fights, but very similar.
And they don't do like takedowns or anything, do they? Or like sweeps? Or...
No, no. This is like they're going to disqualify you if you do that in a fight. So
And I mean, if you said you're in tournaments, are you like quite good then? I mean, 7 years is a long time.
mm, I've won a few national championships, but never really got beyond that. I also had to take like a 1 year break because I had some massive injuries I had to deal with. So I kind of couldn't compete or just train at all at that point. So
Oh wow. Was that from Taekwondo that you
yeah,
got that? What happened?
I dislocated my shoulder multiple times, I
Oh,
think.
shoulders are one of the worst things I think, because then you can't use like your entire arm. Um, yeah, okay, that's a bit of a side tangent, but like, what does your day look like now then? Do you, I guess, is it any free time you have? You're just writing.
I
Or,
try to leverage weekends for working on like the for like for doing the highest leverage work I could say. So because like throughout the week it's just I'm at school up until like 2 or 3 p.m. Then I come home, I study for what I need to study. Then I usually have like a 30 minutes of spare time. Then I go to practice, and if I have energy, I just do something yeah, something related to writing and stuff. But on the weekends it's just I usually wake up and I either like I read a lot and consume a lot of stuff on weekends, but I mostly spend those days writing and building and like yeah, talking to people, having calls with people. So yeah, weekends are the best for that.
yeah, I think it's important if you got a lot of stuff going on. You really do need to like prioritize and figure out like what is the highest leverage activities. You said you read quite a bit on the weekend. I remember reading your tweet not from too long ago about like sometimes reading is not necessarily good. I think a lot of people have this idea that like, oh, you need to read to like be successful or whatever. But I found like the more I've got into this space, I actually probably read less than I did like a year ago because I'm kind of like figuring out the actions I need to take and just doing more of that instead of just reading. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I guess I know what tweet do you mean. It's like a lot of people on Twitter, they like to hate on people who read a lot but never really take action. But I feel like reading doesn't always have to be about that. It's also just about um teaching you and like getting you into the right state of mind and helping you build the beliefs that are going to help you become the person you want to become. So I feel like it's just like a lot about beliefs. Like the beliefs you have right now are just everything. They're forming everything about you, about your future, about your future success. And I believe that books are just tremendous to get you in the right kind of state of mind to like help you think the right way. So it I used to get into this trap too, that like I was afraid to read more books because I was afraid that I cannot like keep up with all the things I have to apply. But it just I like to read books not for like actionable advice, but mostly for just getting useful ideas. And when it comes to actionable stuff, I usually do that from like more short form content like YouTube videos or blog posts, but not really books.
Yeah, no, there definitely is value in books for sure. I just think it's interesting. People think like, oh, I need to read this book. I need to read this book. It's like try to figure out what your like main issue is. I think, and like what you need to change, and then go and find stuff to do with that. Um, and then you mentioned how like important beliefs are. How would you say like your beliefs have changed over this journey?
Hmm, that's a great question. I'm gonna need some time to think about this because there is just so much that changed. Because like I think I've said that a few times, but I feel like they changed in a good way. Like honestly, every single good thing that happened to me over the past 2 years came from me starting online and going down that path. And so like if I would read like a journal entry or something from myself 2 years ago, I wouldn't recognize myself. So I can't really point out any particular belief right now, but it I can point out like personality traits, but not really particular beliefs. So
We can do personality traits. Yeah, I think it's kind of because it's like a slow process. You almost sometimes don't even realize you're changing until you like turn around and look back, and you're like, wow, I've come quite far actually.
yeah, so one of the biggest benefits I've seen is just I became less socially awkward and more open to talking to strangers and talking to people in general because like more than anywhere else, like online you have to cope with the fact that like you know like when you publish online, all the people have the fear of like what are people think about me. But if you eventually want to like reap some success in that space, we just need to get over that hurdle, and the best way to do that is by realizing that nobody actually cares about you. So just you do you. You can just like go out into the world and just like be yourself. And like the worst case scenario, like someone's going to like write a hate comment on your tweet just to cope with their bad day. But like that's it. Like it's probably not gonna get worse than that if you're not doing some like controversial stuff. And it just really affected me, not just that I progressed in like reaching out to people online and just like getting better in communication. Like for example, like 1 year ago or like 2 years ago when I would had to hop on with someone on a call, it was like a group call. I would write in the chat that I have issues with my microphone because I was too afraid to speak. Generally, I get a lot more just less scared when speaking with people. And even like when I had my first podcast interview, I was just super scared. I was sweating. Right now, I'm still like I feel like I still suck at like speaking because it's just speaking is just different than writing. Like in
Yeah,
writing, you have so much time and space to edit and to actually think about what you want to say. But speaking is just I still like ramble a lot. And but yeah, it's everything. It gets better with practice. But
I think you're doing all right.
it the also the like the event, yeah, thanks. It also made me more social in real life, that I just realized that I can just like be myself and just go into the world and just approach people and talk to them. And it's an advantage obviously when you're the type of person who just goes for things, goes for conversations with people. And I've seen like tons of improvements in my life since I started doing that.
Mm, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll look back at some of my older podcasts I did, and it's just yeah, it makes me cringe as well. But it's interesting to see the progression. But no, you're doing good. I don't think you're rambling too much at all. Um, yeah, so that was kind of like personality traits. I guess the main skills I know you talked about like writing and copywriting, but are there any others? And then kind of what skills you're looking to kind of get next?
Mm, that's a good question. And one thing I'm trying to look into is just graphic design, because I feel like this is the translates into so many things. Well, like because I feel like being a good writer and just like knowing how to communicate your message is one thing, but it just people have been communicating visually for much longer than with words. So I guess like one of the most powerful components of being a good communicator is also being a good designer and being able to communicate well visually. So I haven't looked into that actively, but I have a couple of books on my book list to read for researchers to check. So yeah, I would definitely, because I feel like I'm good at design and I just encounter so much when I feel it would be good to have a knowledge. So designing a newsletter, just hire someone. But I believe that like as a teenager, when you enter you're not good at, you have so much so because it's like you have so much time that it's like better if you invest your time to like gain skills than if you invest your money to gain time. That's a heuristic I kind of like to use. So yeah, I would like to definitely become like better in design.
Yeah. Okay. And do you have any like plans of how you would use that, or is it kind of you just think it's very broad and you're kind of going to end up using it no matter kind of what you do?
Yeah, I feel like yeah, it's very broad. I guess just learning about the basics of like mm, for example, like what fonts to use, what text, like text alignment, just real like the basic rules, just like learning the basic principles and then seeing them how they apply across all the domains where you can see design.
Yeah. I mean, person coming to mind is like Zach Pogrоб, because I was following him ages ago, like when he was on Instagram before he even like put his face on there. Uh, and then he, I have no idea how many followers he had. It was less than 100k, I think. But he always was like big into like design pictures. I guess Jack Butcher as well. I mean, people would probably say now Zach is more like to do with writing, but if you look at his Instagram posts, I remember one. He said he spent like hours like deciding this new font and like changing the letter spacing, stuff that people like probably wouldn't think about, but he said like in the end that would make a difference because he runs a what do you call it, a photo booth company, so he does have like that background in design.
Yeah, I know Zach. Zach has been such a massive inspiration in so many things I do. But yeah, I feel like even like Ali Abdal is fan of like because I know he once mentioned on some podcast, I think it was Danny Miranda podcast, but I don't want to say anything that's not true. But I feel like it was that podcast, and he said that one of the greatest advantages he kind of like gained early on was just learning how to make things look nice. Because like yeah, it's just again designs translate into everything like visuals, videos, those like animations that are blowing up on Instagram right now. Even like I feel like even like knowing how to clothe yourself, like it's also design. So it's just like how to dress yourself properly so it looks good. So it's just yeah, so it's just like design is everything.
And then I guess, have there been any like major mistakes or like advice you'd give to your younger self, like looking back on how you've come, that you would do differently if you could do it again?
Mm. Okay, that's a very good question. You mean like general advice or like related to content or writing?
It can be anything really. Yeah.
Yeah, so the best piece of advice I can give my past self right now is do not ever rely on external conditions in your life to make you happy. Instead, just spend time building your own thing and just make sure that all the happiness, like most of the happiness you have, comes from the inside, from just you being like happy with who you are and with the stuff that you're doing. Because it's just been I've just seen this so many times in my life that a lot of people like my classmates and friends like that are just happy when things are going good, like when they have tons of friends, when I don't know, they have a boyfriend, they have a girlfriend, whatever. But then someone when someone fucks up, they're just unhappy and they just have to wait and just they're like kind of dead until something good happens again. It's just much better to like really build something, like whether you're just building yourself or just building something like a company, business, Twitter account, whatever, that is just like this kind of source of your happiness and source of fulfillment, and it gives you this kind of purpose rather than just like getting getting affected by the stuff that's happening on the outside. So not sure if I articulated pretty well, but this is probably the most important piece of advice I'd love my younger self to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of like finding your purpose and not letting external events like affect you as much, or like you're not relying on them for happiness. I think one thing there that I know what you mean, but I think you said it like a bit, perhaps a little bit strangely, was like you're relying on your business or Twitter account that you're growing to be your source of
Oh yeah,
happiness.
no,
Like, I know what you mean by that, but like, I don't think you mean like focusing on numbers or anything and like how many likes you got. You mean
no,
like the joy of just
it's
building
just
something.
yeah, yeah, finding that kind of like finding the peace and joy in just getting better at something at a skill you truly care about. And like I still do believe that like the most happiness from life comes from just like seeing yourself getting stronger, wiser, smarter, like better at something every single day. Like just progress I feel like is the best kind of like motivator and a source of joy in whatever area. So that's probably the thing, you know. And just like also just it's a lot about just like getting comfortable with yourself, with who you are, you know, and just like accepting yourself. So there are like kind of two sides to it. It's just the first side is to just make sure that you are improving yourself and building something, but the second side is also like being able to accept yourself as you are at this point, and it's important to find the balance in between those two.
Yeah. It's quite cliche, but a lot of people say like enjoy the journey, but I think it really is true. And I like this thing I heard from Alex Hormozy recently that was that like the work works on you more than you work on it, and that like a lot of people think that when they make like their income goal, or when they're, I don't know, get to a certain body weight or whatever, these like external goals, they think that's going to make them happy, but it's not. I don't think that is going to make you happy. It's kind of like the journey of who you become as you get to those goals. Like that's the interesting part. That's the part that gives you purpose. That's the part that makes you feel fulfilled. And like, yeah,
Yeah,
some days you're gonna probably like not enjoy it as much, but I think it is important that you kind of go through that, because if you were just given it, it wouldn't, like, trophies don't mean anything like unless you earn them. I think is how like Jordan Peterson says it. Like you it's important that
yeah,
you are doing something that's what is going to give you the purpose and like fulfillment.
yeah. I've seen it so much in my life that whenever I see myself working really hard or on something, whether that is again taekwondo or just like studying business, reading books or something, and then I would just like kind of ask myself, why am I doing this? Like, what is the end goal? Like, what is the purpose behind it? And then like the kind of like the intuitive response would be because I want to achieve X, Y, and Z, and then I would like imagine myself at the top, like having achieved my goal, and I was like, that's not really that fulfilling. Like, I guess the thing I care about doing isn't winning, but it's just staying in the game. I kind of stole that quote from, I think it was Simon Sinek or someone like that who said that you have finite players and infinite players, that like finite players play to win, infinite players play to stay. Something like that. I love that quote.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if that's Simon Sinek, but I have definitely heard that before. And I think in your video you said on Twitter that you kind of just want to create something useful. I think that's from like Derek Sivers. Whether that would
Yeah.
be like startup content or like books or anything. So like, have you thought about writing a book? I mean, I assume you have, or also like a startup.
Yeah, sure. Like, I definitely want to get into at least one of those things. Definitely startup or writing a book. But it's just really, I'm really at this point of life where I'm just really trying to figure stuff out, trying to figure out just, it's not like, yeah, as I've said, I'm not the type of person who would have some like, yeah, great, like vision for a decade. I would just go for it every single day. I'm more like the type of person who's operating in like 6 month bits, you know? So it's like, I know what I want to achieve, like more or less in the next 6 months. And then when I like if I achieve that, and like when I achieve that, and I kind of look back on the path I've walked, and I just ask myself whether this is the path that, like, whether I made progress in the direction I like, and if I do, then great. I just continue down the path, and if I do not, I know that I just need to change something. So it's like this like course correction method. And one thing that I think Mark Manson said it, but if you want to, it's like a great quote that if you want to figure out your life's purpose, the key isn't to answer the question what's your life's purpose, but it's to keep constantly asking the right question. So like, do I like doing this? Like, am I happy with this? If this is Steve Jobs' question, if I were to die today, would I be happy with what am I doing? And I believe that if you keep asking yourself this and keep being honest with yourself and keep making those course corrections, then there's no way you're not going to do something that you're not 100% fulfilled with. So that's how I think about it. I feel like I kind of got off track, but
No,
yeah.
that was good. I don't think you do get to like an answer, or like maybe you do, but like you don't just wake up one day and know what it is. Like you have to go out and search. And then what is your goal for like the next 6 months that you mentioned?
Yeah, so it's definitely, as I've previously mentioned, end up working for someone that I admire. So yeah, number one is just Ali Abdel, because I feel like I'm just so close to really landing that job, and yeah, I feel like this like the chance is so high. But if not, then I'm just gonna work for someone. Like I see this as like as kind of like a non-negotiable part. Like I know it's going to happen. It's just going to happen. Like I'm gonna make it happen, and yeah, one idea I've been really thinking about is I'd like to start a second more niche newsletter, but this time I would like get more focused on like growing it than actually monetizing it, because either with like sponsorships or affiliates, and then maybe plan to sell it. But this is just like a broadly outline idea. I don't really want to talk about it as much right now, because it's like it's just like an idea that just was sparked in me a few days ago. I spent a few like tons of time thinking about it, still thinking about it, still like trying to figure out what it should be. But it's like a super broad outline. But yeah, so for now, getting close and like working for someone that I admire is the number one priority, number one goal, the number one vision.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or should we wrap up here? Any closing thoughts?
Nothing I can think of right now, so I guess it's a good time to wrap up. It was a great conversation.
Yeah. So where can people find you? It's Twitter is the main place, right? Or and your newsletter.
Yeah, Twitter and newsletter too, if you want to get deeper into what I do and what I like talking about. So,
Yeah. And what's the at? Is at Claudia Stellner.
Stellner, yeah,
I'll put the links in the.
Stew. Okay,
Yeah.
all
Okay.
right, and yeah, newsletter, there's a newsletter. Yeah,
I'll find the links. Okay. This has been good. I'm glad we finally got to chat. I feel it's probably been a long time coming, to be honest. Just seen you hanging around in areas of the internet, but we never really spoke before. So, yeah, thanks for doing this. Have a good rest of your day, I guess. Yeah.